They're probably way ahead of everybody else. They're probably 10 or 100 times or 1,000 times ahead of the guy that's in place 2.
It has been great listening to the whole 3.5 hours, but whew, I don't think most people have that much time for this. So let's condense this and let's dive in.
Oh, there's no way that Tesla can do this. They'd have to grow faster than Microsoft, and Microsoft's a software company, right? And I mean, they print CDs and send them out the door. And Tesla did actually, outgrow Microsoft in its heyday growth period. And they make cars.
And of course, I believe it will keep happening. And I believe Tesla stock will 10x before the end of 2030.
Optimizing a neural network down to make it smaller. So when you run in the car, it takes less resources. So one of the constraints that they have on the accuracy that they get in various neural networks is how big, how much neural network they can run in the car, right? Well, you get, if you run distillation on all your networks to distill them down, you get like 10 times as much neural network in your car, or 5 times as much neural network for the same thing. That's a pretty expensive process. But like, if you have unlimited compute, you're going to distill all your networks, right? Because that lets you put the equivalent of a much bigger neural network on the same hardware.
Yeah.
This is why it is so important for Tesla to work on its own full self-driving chip and continue iterating that hardware, which we know hardware 4.0 is coming out next year. And I can't imagine how much more powerful it will be than the current hardware. And that will, of course, speed up full self-driving to become reality. And training of the networks, that is where Dojo comes in. This is why it's so important for Tesla to develop Dojo, the supercomputer, so that Tesla has this capability to train all of its networks with tons of data that Tesla receives each day from the fleet.
Yeah. How do you look at it? Is Tesla's lead, do you think, growing in terms of, their goal to generalize autonomy?
It's
or
an
is it
exponential lead, right?
Is it just
so it's
hard to
say,
evaluate?
If you're, 10x ahead, and these are, Tesla's not, 10x better on every single dimension. There are all kinds of things that they don't do that aren't as important to them as other people. And other people do those things and put more resources on them and whatnot, right? Like Tesla doesn't spend any time doing sensor fusion with LiDAR, right? It's just like not on their path. So there are lots of dimensions that Tesla's probably not the be all end all of what's going on.
And of course, the reason is because Tesla knows it does not need those other sensors like LiDAR. Because ask this yourself, do you have a LiDAR sensor somewhere in your body that shoots out lasers? No, we have cameras, basically, our eyes. So if we can drive with cameras and a little bit of hearing, if you hear a siren, police car or firefighters go by, you hear it and okay, you gotta watch out, and then you just watch the road. That's all you need. So why bother with anything else?
Tesla's data advantage at the fleet, their ability to gather more data, if they're going to use it well, they have to put more resources into doing a good job of labeling it and cleaning it and all that kind of stuff. And so it's very likely that they're ahead of everybody else because it's incumbent on them for the approach that they do to be better than other people. So if we're just talking about that aspect of it, like being able to automatically label, produce really good labels on really large amounts of data, yeah, they're probably way ahead of everybody else. They're probably 10 or 100 times or 1,000 times ahead of the guy that's in place 2.
Do you remember what Andre, Tesla's ex-AI lead, said on his interview with Lex Friedman just a week ago? He said it's all about the fleet. Do you have a fleet? It's not about do you have to use LiDAR or vision. It's about do you have the data? Do you have the fleet? And then once you have the data, you have to run that through the auto labeler to make that data useful. And that is where Tesla is so much ahead of everyone else. That is why I believe Tesla stock will at least 10x before the end of 2030, because they will be the first ones to solve full self-driving. Perhaps the most interesting part of the whole interview with James and Dave was the part where James explained how Tesla uses language models, out of all models, to decide how to, for example, choose lanes or how to make decisions when car is engaged. It was a lot of nerd talk, technical talk, difficult to understand. I'll explain this to you in about 30 seconds and it'll all make sense immediately. So see, let's say there's a 50% chance that the car thinks there's a 50% chance you need to turn left. There's a 50% chance you need to turn right. The car does not know what to do. However, this is where Tesla uses language model. Language models are important because a computer can understand when a sentence makes no sense or when it is completely incorrect. For example, Elon is smart. Okay, we know that is true. So therefore, it tells the full self-driving network, neural network, that you can turn left. This is one of the possible outcomes. Stephen Mark Ryan is funny. That is also true. Neural network would know that. Okay, so this is a viable decision. But you see, computers like to have two options and then they pick the middle. So if you go forward, so you take the middle, you will be wrong every single time. So this is where the language model comes in, because Tesla is able to attach words to each decision. And if words do not make, for example, grammatical sense or any sense at all, like for example, Gordon Johnson is right about Tesla, that makes no sense. So it would be obvious immediately to everyone that you cannot go straight. You have to either turn left or you have to turn right, but you cannot go straight. So the neural network has to pick one of those, but it cannot go with the middle. Choosing the middle when you are driving can be extremely dangerous if you are driving to nowhere, and even worse if you are driving off a cliff here.
The guy in position 2, he can get 10 times better and he's still fantastically far behind. You know, it becomes hard to make the comparisons because the scale of operation is already ludicrously different in certain respects that are relevant.
This is what Stephen Mark Ryan means when he says Tesla's lead is unassailable. You have no hope of catching up to Tesla, even if you all of a sudden you progress so quickly that now you are 10 times better than where you were. You are still so far behind Tesla. Tesla at this point would have to mess up on a galactic scale for it not to be the first company to solve full self-driving using the vision approach.
It's worth spending time on auto labeling because it's really important. I mean, they showed us a lot about their auto labeling. Their auto labeling has really advanced. I mean, that slide where they showed us the 4 different years, those are like night and day different advances in the capability every single year. And they're not done yet, right? It's going to keep growing. Let's see.
Do you remember that chart that I showed you by how many parameters AI models increase every year for the last few years? They have been increasing by 10 times per year. Moore's law dictates that the number of transistors doubles, not every year, once every 2 years. This is 10 times per year. Tesla will keep improving. The auto labeler will get better. We will have a lot more data. Right now, we don't even have 200,000 beta testers of FSD, and we already have so much data. Imagine what happens when there will be 1 million people that will be using FSD beta every single day. And the more people use it, the more data there will be, and the better it will get, and the faster it will be solved.
You have to be really careful with it because neural networks are really good at figuring out that you're showing them simulated data and then drawing different conclusions than they would if the data was real. So, you know, I look at this scene and it's obvious to me this is a simulation. It's a pretty good simulation, but this is, to me, obviously. So how do I know that? The light is a little too flat. The colors are a little too primary. The atmospheric's a little wrong. There's all these very subtle visual cues that you get. Neural networks learn all of that kind of stuff. So you can't use simulated data as a substitute for real data, at least not today. There will be a point where neural networks are good enough to get the gist of what you're trying to get to when you show them a piece of data. You know, they'll be able to extract the abstraction from it and learn from that.
Of course, you hear how some companies simulate millions, billions, probably trillions of miles. All you get from that, mostly right now at least, for now, and until the foreseeable future, you just get full self-driving that works well in a simulation, but not in reality. This is why you need the data from real life. This is why you need the fleet.
And real world, only it's like, I don't know where else in the world do you go and get 13,900 videos or to solve one minor problem. You know? Like, it's nuts. It's 50 million. It's 50 million images, right? For one relatively minor problem.
Or 50 million reasons why Tesla will be the first one to solve full self-driving before any other company gets a hang of it, because they do not understand they need the fleet and they need the data, and then they need to train the data with a supercomputer that they probably need to build themselves, because NVIDIA, they are a leader right now, but what if they do not innovate? So you need your own team to build the supercomputer as an insurance policy, which for Tesla is Dojo, to train your neural networks. It is extremely time-consuming and expensive in terms of compute. So you need to have your own computer to do that. You can't rely on a third party. And this is part of vertical integration for Elon Musk, but he doesn't want to just vertically integrate just for the sake of vertically integrating. He does that when he has no other option.
This doesn't seem to happen. No matter how big they get, they don't start doing stuff that doesn't make sense from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah.
That's super impressive.
Yeah.
You know why that does not happen at Tesla? Because Tesla is run by Elon Musk, the world's single best engineer. If the CEO is not an engineer, the company will do things that they should not be doing from a point of engineering. Because if you do not understand engineering, how can you do everything that will make sense? You just can't.